All right, everyone. This is our breast cancer add-on to the cancer workshop that we did, and there was just so much to cover. And I know this is a topic that especially women are just really, really concerned about. Men too, because they're married to women, right? And even men get breast cancer. So I wanted to take some time to really drill down into some really important information. So I'm going to get right into it. Let me get up my PowerPoint here. So you should be able to see me in the corner, and I'm going to go through the slides for you. And at the end, if you have any questions, I'm going to be posting this on our private group, so you can either post questions there or you can send them to me directly. Okay, so let's see if I can get this. There we go. So I wanted to go through some breast cancer stats. I'm sure you guys are all aware of what is going on in our country with this, but 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer. 1 in 39 will die of breast cancer. And if you see the little side note there, 1 in 20 in the 60s and 1 in 14 in the 1980s. Number 2 cause of deaths in women. Nearly 2 million women diagnosed and treated for breast cancer. And I got the latest statistics that I could for 2019. 316,700 cases and 41,760 deaths. And notably, industrialized countries have higher rates. And you may ask yourself, well, how can that be? And we're going to go through the answers to some of those questions. But I mean, all of us know someone that's been affected by breast cancer, and it is a very scary diagnosis. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. So let's get going through here. Okay, now there's a couple things. So I think we would all agree that we need to be way past awareness, right? We need to be into getting solutions. But just so you're aware, and it was just this past October, every October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So it was 1995. Breast Cancer Awareness Month was conceived and paid for by a British chemical company, Imperial Chemicals. And it was a joint venture, you guys can read there, American Academy of Family Physicians, Cancer Care, and Zeneca Pharmaceuticals, which we know is AstraZeneca, a pharmaceutical company. So it now is kind of a web that includes a whole bunch of different things, but you know, they are affiliated with the 5K runs, the Avon Walk, the Komen Race for the Cure, and we'll talk about Komen here in a little bit. So I don't know if you guys know this. I was so fascinated by this when I heard it. So the pink ribbon is so notable. Everyone knows about the pink ribbon, but I don't know if you know its history, and it's very, very interesting. So the very first ribbon, it wasn't pink, it was peach color. It was peach. And it was created by a woman named Charlotte Haley in 1990. And she created it because she wanted to stop cancer where it starts. And so this was a quote from her. It said, "The National Cancer Institute's annual budget is $1.8 billion. Only 5% goes for cancer prevention. Help us wake up our legislators and America by wearing this ribbon." And so you can see her whole goal and mission was about cancer prevention. Cancer prevention. And what happened was, this is so interesting how this happened. That ribbon was taken over by Self magazine, basically, and Estee Lauder. They came in and said, "Wow, that's a great idea. We want that," right? They turned it pink instead of peach, and Charlotte Haley was taken out of the equation. So today there's no restrictions on who uses it, what it's used for, and it's obviously widespread and used in breast cancer awareness, and it's very far removed from what her initial goal of that thing was. So poor woman, like, she had this awesome idea and a vision for it, and it was basically stolen from her. So I always have to talk about this because it's still happening. I can't believe it's still happening. This whole pink washing idea, right? Where in October everything turns pink and you'll see the Susan G. Komen or the pink ribbon on alcoholic beverages, on chips, on makeup, on, at one point, Susan G. Komen had this perfume called Promise Me. I don't think they even make it anymore, but it was full of cancer-causing carcinogens. I mean, you see KFC, the bucket, it turns pink. And I know you guys have seen this, where everything is pink. They're going to give money to cancer. They're going to give money to Susan G. Komen. And I mean, it's an insult to our intelligence, right? We know these things aren't healthy, and a lot of them cause the very thing that they're trying to raise money for. And so it's called pinkwashing because it's kind of it's transparent, right? It's like you're using it to raise money, but to sell your products. And it's just not okay. We've got to be done with that stuff. Okay, so anytime you're giving money to any organization, you have to really understand where your money's going. And I'll be honest, I don't give my money to hardly anything unless I know what it is. I give money to my church, I give money to Calvary Children's Home here, I give money to Must Ministries. But when it comes to these like American Heart Association and Susan G. Komen and cancer research and all that, I don't give them money because I need to know the answers to some of these questions. So how much money from your purchase actually goes toward breast cancer, and is that amount clearly stated on the package? Getting back to the pinkwashing. What is the maximum amount that will be donated? How are the funds being raised? To what breast cancer organization does the money go, and what types of programs does it support? And what is the company doing to actually assure that its products are not contributing to the breast cancer epidemic? So we have to really understand, and you will be surprised, I'm going to get into it here in a second, where your money is actually going or not going. And here it is. So, and I tried to go on there today, Susan G. Komen or Komen.org, and you can't find charts like this anymore. So this one, you'll see the last one that I could find was 2008, 2009. So I just want to highlight some concepts here. And so again, Susan G. Komen, they have the people that support Susan G. Komen think they're doing a good thing, and they have great intentions when they give to this organization. But I will tell you right now, it is corrupt. I'm just putting it out there. It's corrupt. And so they're not good stewards of the money. There's lots of people making lots of money in their executive team and things like that. And it's crazy. So look at this in 1982 to 96, which is the graph on the left. You can see 75% of the money went to biology. Well, what does that mean? It's finding out what types of cancers they are, how they grow, what's involved, really getting into the weeds in terms of what these cancers are, right? And then you see very minuscule amounts in treatment and very minuscule amounts in early detection and basically nothing in prevention. So that was early on in Susan G. Komen. And then you look at 2008, 2009, and now it's probably even worse, and that's why I can't find it on their website anymore. But you can see 35%, well, 23% is still on biology, like learning about the cancers, doing research. 35% now is on treatment, 18% on early detection, diagnosis, and prognosis. Cancer survivor outcomes, 7%. But you see prevention is still a mere 7%, right? And remember, we talked about at the workshop, the doctors talked about the cause is the cure. We have to prevent the thing, not treat the thing, right? We need to focus on preventing it from ever occurring in the first place. And it's great that we have potential treatments and things like that, but when we're giving money to cancer research, my thought would be like, let's work on the prevention of it. Let's really work on the prevention instead of, some treatment or potential cure. Let's look to the cause. Let's look to the cause. So really, really be careful about where you're spending your money and look down those rabbit holes and really do some investigation because things are not as they seem. So why is it that we're like breast cancer awareness is all focused around early detection and treatment and not around prevention, right? Especially when it comes to things like toxins. And we have to remember that cancer, unfortunately, is big business, right? Treatment costs in 2008 were $93 billion. And you just go on, like General Electric sells $100 million worth of mammography machines every single year. Doctors make money off of doing mammograms. Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we see ads for that on TV all the time. So let's say an 8-week radiation program for liver cancer is $56,000. I mean, it's there's tons of money being spent and being made on in the cancer industry. And so remember I said that AstraZeneca was a co-founder in the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But you have to look at the connections and kind of follow the money and follow the money trail. So AstraZeneca makes a pesticide that's been implicated as a factor, a carcinogen for breast cancer. It also owns Optimum Oncology, which is a treatment center in many different states. They also manufacture, which is a controversial drug, tamoxifen, right? And so all of these things, and then you got Arimidex, which is the #1 cancer drug right now, and then they combine it with tamoxifen. So again, cancer is big business. AstraZeneca has a vested interest in the success of something like Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They're making a lot of money off of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And if we look at toxins, and I never hear oncologists talk about this. I never hear it brought up when people are talking about the cancer epidemic, but 4 billion prescription drugs, 70,000 chemicals are used commercially, 3,000 chemicals in our food. I've talked about that a lot when I do my Nutrition 101s. 10,000 chemicals in food processing, and inside of our homes, it's now, the EPA estimates that our inside environments are more toxic than our outside environments, 5 to 100 times more sometimes. And you can see this quote there, that most cancer is due to diet and the accumulation of toxins. And, you know, that's just the God's honest truth. So what are we doing about it? And we have to remember too, and this is a big talk around cancer, having the cancer gene, especially when it comes to breast cancer, the BRCA gene. We have to always keep in mind that genes load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. We talked about epigenetics, right? And you can see here, 80% of all cancers are attributed to environmental factors, including exposure to these carcinogenic chemicals. So it's not necessarily our DNA, it's what we're doing in our lifestyle and how we're living our lives that's causing the biggest problem, right? So where do we get all of these exposures? These are the top culprits, and I mentioned some of them already. Our air and our water has chlorine and dioxin and endocrine disruptors. Cosmetics, if you didn't know it, are highly toxic with things like parabens and even heavy metals. There's lead in lipstick and in mascara. Our food supply, I already talked about that a little bit. Household products, I mean, we're talking about phthalates and parabens and all of these crazy things in our household, cleaning products. And then healthcare. I mentioned the medications and things like that that have side effects, and every medication is a chemical. And so we talked about too, we have these buckets. I don't remember which session it was, but when our buckets get filled up with all of these toxins, then they start to overflow, and that's where all the health issues start to happen. So one that I wanted to point out is this RBGH, which, you know, and that picture I've had in here, it's gross. It's just gross. So, and sad. But RBGH is what you would find in dairy, and it's an artificial hormone. And guess what? It was developed by Monsanto. If you don't know anything about Monsanto, go and look it up as homework. Most everybody's heard of them by now because they're affiliated with glyphosate, which we've talked about. But they sold it to Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company, and it's given to cows to help them produce more milk. And you can see from that picture what it looks like for them to produce more milk. And so the research shows that this RBGH is highly associated with the increased risk of breast cancer and colon cancer too. And guess what? Eli Lilly then makes breast cancer drugs. And this was in 2008. Eli Lilly, you could see their profits from these cancer drugs. And, you know, you just have to, again, wonder, you know, what are the motives in this, right? And so we have absolutely got to pay more attention to this and demand more, right? And we vote with our dollars and we vote with our voice, and we need to really make a difference here. So, are our current screening methods working for breast cancer? What are our current screening methods? Mostly mammography, right? So let's dive in and talk about mammograms. Now, first I'll say I'm turning 50 this year. Next month, in fact, and I've never had a mammogram. And I won't have a mammogram, right? I shouldn't say I won't have a mammogram, but it's highly doubtful that I'll ever have a mammogram. And here's some stats about mammography that you may not know. There's up to a 30% false negative, up to a 20% false positive. 90% of cancers are detected in women over 50. Only 70% of cancers are detected in women under 50. And so there's this whole false sense of security when you get a negative screening. Like you go in, you get a negative mammogram, and you think, oh, good. Like I don't have to change anything with my lifestyle. I'm doing great. But what if it was a false negative, right? And you really do have something growing there because, listen, tumors, breast cancer, none of it appears overnight. It just doesn't. You are growing that breast cancer. You are growing any kind of cancer, any kind of tumor over a period of time. And a lot of times it's like 10 years, right? A whole decade. And so the public has this misperception that breast cancer screening reduces breast cancer mortality, and that's simply not true. So we have to ask, like, how did this stuff become the standard of care, if you will? So in 1985, and just so you know, guys, when you see a study or you see these things, you really have to dig down and find out because stats are an interesting thing. You can make them say a lot of things. Like you can get to the result you want to get by manipulating a few things. So in 1985, a Swedish study showed 31% reduction in deaths from mammogram screenings. So let's break this down a little bit. For every 10,000 women screened, 1,500 of them required further investigations, and that would be something like a biopsy. 137 cancers were identified. So then they followed these people for 7 years after that screening, and there were 11 deaths among the screened women and 15 deaths among the unscreened women. So that 4-person difference is where they came up with that 31% reduction. Now, can you really deduce that? I mean, can you? I don't know. So, we have to really wonder why. And again, remember I mentioned there's a lot of money to be had in mammograms, right? In the machinery that they use, in the doctors that run them, in the people that pay for them, and the health insurance companies that cover them. So there's a lot of money there. And I'll tell you, it's not the best screening tool. And I'm going to show you something here in a little bit that's pennies on the dollar compared to this that does much earlier detection. Now, I know we have several patients that have had a mammogram and have identified a cancer, and that can be a good thing because maybe they otherwise wouldn't have known. But I want to get into, let me see if I'll get to that in a second. But there's other things that we can do to detect breast cancers as well. Let's see. So this is just, some different things on the guidelines, and it seems like they change them all the time. But now I think where they've landed is mammograms are recommended for women starting at age 40. At age 40. And I don't think I have the slide in here, but we have to remember too that this is our breast tissue being squished, right, into the machine and being radiated. And I don't think I have the slide in there, but it's estimated that the amount of radiation that goes in there is like what a woman in Japan would have experienced, just not too far from Hiroshima. So, I mean, we're talking about mega amounts of radiation right into your breast tissue. And so there's a possibility that could be actually causing cancers if they weren't there before. And so here's some more, I want you to get thinking about this, and I want you to ask questions. So in 2000, there were Swedish trials that showed there's no reliable evidence that screening decreases breast cancer mortality. And it goes on and on. For every 2,000 women who receive mammograms, the number of extra procedures increased by 10%. The number of mastectomies increased by 20%. And so it's kind of like the lion's den. So you go in, you get an irregular mammogram, and then, we need to do all these other tests, right? And then, of course, panic sets in, and you're in a terrible frame of mind, and it's just not good. So again, the risks, we have to understand the risks. False reassurance, like I said, if you get a normal report, the psychological distress over false positives. I've seen this happen to people a lot. And I mean, it's just major anxiety and stress, which affects your immune system and your health, which you don't want. Discomfort of the procedure. I don't know what it feels like because I've never had one, but I've heard it's awful. And you have the potential for the radiation-induced cancer, like I said. So, it's just, it may not be the best tool. There's other things that we can do. So, the breast cancer treatment industry would lose a hell of a lot of face if the government began questioning the value of screening, right? So, what in the world can you do instead of that? So, I want to go through that with you guys. And so, again, we want to focus on prevention. We want to focus on prevention. And one thing I will say too, because I've had a couple patients here recently that have been diagnosed with breast cancer. And what I always say is, because when you go in and you're faced with that diagnosis, first of all, it's very disturbing, right? And there's not a lot of, I mean, these oncologists and their staff, like, they go through this a million times a day. Like, they don't, it's just normal and routine for them. Meanwhile, you're the person with the diagnosis. But they want to go through their protocol, get you scheduled for this, get your biopsy, get your this, get your port put in, get your chemo scheduled, get your radiation scheduled. And it's like this whole, like, let's just do it. And what I always tell women is, you need to take that, take it in, right? And then take a week if you need to. Remember that cancer didn't appear overnight. It's probably been building for 10 years. You have some time to discern and make some decisions and gather up all of your information. Sit down, talk to your significant other, talk to your husband, talk to your family members, and you have to do what feels right in your heart, not making any rash decisions based on fear or propaganda or whatever may be happening in that office. That it has to be a well thought out decision that you have to be 100% okay with in your heart and your mind, and everybody has to be on the same page. And, so I always tell people, just take a deep breath, gain some discernment, gather up all of your data and your information, and then move forward. So I hope that makes sense to you guys, because it's so, so important to just take your time and carve out your path. And we've seen so many people be successful with a diagnosis like this, and it's amazing to see, and your body has an amazing ability to heal. So let's go through some of these 10 steps. Like, what can you do to work on that prevention piece? That's 100% the most important thing. The cause is the cure. So eat good food, follow the advanced plan, which is you're eliminating sugar. And now remember, from what the doctors were talking about and what I talked about, is you have to eliminate sugar. Cancer loves sugar. Sugar is the food and fuel for cancer. Remember the PET scan, what that was, right? Eat organic if you can, especially when it comes to, I hope you guys remember this, when it comes to the meats that you're eating: grass-fed beef, free-range chicken and eggs, wild-caught fish. And use the food products that Max Living has that we know are clean and full of nutrient-dense materials. So the Max Living whey protein, the bone broth protein, Max Greens is awesome. We're coming out with a new berry-flavored greens. We have the chocolate, and then we have capsules for those of you that don't like the taste of greens in your drink at all. So we have to get the nutrition piece under control. We have to start doing that now. Don't wait until you have a diagnosis. You can start doing those things now. And we absolutely have to start avoiding and eliminating those environmental toxins. Ladies, I think the estimate is we use 33 personal care products every single day. You have got to clean that stuff up. Your skin is your largest organ, and we're putting that stuff on our skin, and it's going directly into our bodies, right? And here's one thing too. I think it's on the next number 3. We have to change our cleaning products. You need to remove any mercury fillings, so any silver fillings that you have, and make sure you talk to us before you do that, so we can give you a referral to a dentist who knows what he's doing, because it's very dangerous to remove that stuff the wrong way. Store your food in glass. Don't use plastics. Use non-toxic cleaning products. And yeah, so here it is, the underarm deodorant. So when we put underarm deodorant, antiperspirants on, and they have aluminum in them, you're putting it on your skin, which is your largest organ. Your lymph nodes are right there, and your breast tissue is right there, right? And so that's been definitely linked to breast cancers. So you have got to use a healthy deodorant. I have some that I make. I can't keep it in the office because it flies off the shelf. But there's plenty of them that don't have aluminum and that are healthy and non-toxic. And again, you're putting that on your skin in a very vulnerable place where your lymph nodes are and your breast tissue. So don't mess around with that stuff. Don't be putting toxic lotions and deodorants and perfumes and all of that. I've seen ladies take their perfume and kind of like squirt it everywhere. That stuff is toxic, highly, highly toxic. Let me just switch back over here and see if we're doing okay with this recording. Yep, okay. Lower our exposure to estrogen. So avoiding birth control, which and synthetic hormone replacement therapy. Avoiding soy and soy products, which we talked about. That is estrogen mimicking. They're phytoestrogens. Same thing with plastics. We don't want to have this constant estrogen dominance and our bodies thinking we're being exposed or have all this estrogen in our body when we really don't. And these things mimic estrogen. So we want to lower our exposure to that. Here's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exercise. My husband talked about this. Cancer hates oxygen. We have to be getting oxygen into our bodies. We have to be moving our bodies. And here's the other thing, in talking about toxins, you can see where I wrote there, fat cells store estrogen, and especially those phytoestrogens that are considered toxins, right? So let me just talk about that really quickly. So when your body is intaking all of these toxins, your body's very, very smart. It has a choice. It can either let those toxins roam freely around your body, which is dangerous, and your body knows that, or it can take those toxins and kind of pull them together and encapsulate them and keep them corralled in a fat cell, right? So fat cells contain so many toxins because your body pulls them, instead of letting them go rogue, pulls them into your fat cells. And that's why a lot of people have trouble losing weight. That's called part of what's called weight loss resistance, because your body doesn't want to let that go, right? There's toxic stuff in there. Your body doesn't want to let that go. So you have to be doing all of the things to help your body detoxify enough to start dumping that stuff out of your body. So I hope that makes sense to you guys, but exercise is just so, so important, and that will help blast through those toxins being stored in those fat cells. We've got to drink plenty of clean water. And this is a big one, addressing toxic emotions and the whole max mind component. Like I said, when you get all that added stress and you get that diagnosis and you're doom and gloom and you just have it in your mind that, I could die and I could die tomorrow, that is not productive at all. And the people that we've seen that have been super, super successful have a positive mindset. They go into every day just thinking and knowing they can beat this thing and doing all of the things they need to do, working on things like meditation and their relationships and getting out in nature. And they're very specific and coordinated about that because it's such a huge part. It's such a huge part of your healing process. So that's a big one. And then get a breast exam or do it yourself. The Mama Care method that was developed by Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. She's also big in the vaccine world, but it's awesome. So you definitely need to be doing that as a detection. And I'm going to get into something else here in a minute. But supplementation, right? We have an amazing line of supplements, but if you're concerned about breast cancer or you have indicators that there could be something going on, of course the multi is great. You have to make sure your vitamin D levels are good. I have the chart again that I'm going to show you. Things like curcumin, the Max Living Hormone Balance is awesome. It contains this calcium glucarate, which helps eliminate those extra estrogens. The Max Living Dim, oh, that's spelled wrong on there, I see. The Max Living Dim, again, will help with estrogens. And then for overall health, the probiotics, the omegas, CoQ10, digestive enzymes, those are all things that are awesome. So I'll make sure that I email you guys out links and more info on these as well. And here's that chart that I showed at the MasterClass that you probably couldn't read, so I'll leave this up for you guys to take a peek at. But again, the higher your blood serum vitamin D, the more protective it is against a whole bunch of different things. But look at the breast cancer one in pink there. 83% breast cancer risk reduction if your vitamin D level is above 48. And I like to see it really like 80 or above, right? But all of those diseases are helped and preventable with adequate levels of vitamin D. So it is so important, especially now that we're going into the winter months. Make sure you're supplementing with vitamin D. And like the Max Living Vitamin D has 5,000 IUs in one capsule. A lot of other products in the market only have 500 or 1,000. So 5,000 IUs is just to maintain. So if your vitamin D levels are low, and again, if you need a test, I can get you one. If your vitamin D levels are low, you've got to supplement enough to get it up and get it up quickly. Okay, so here is what I wanted to talk to you guys about instead of doing mammograms, and this is what I do, right? So it's called thermography, and so it's non-invasive. We do it right at the office, and we do it once a month. And you go into a room, and it's based on heat. And so why does it work so well? Because and going back to mammograms, you can see here, this was the American Cancer Institute. By the time breast cancer is detected on a mammogram, a woman will have already had the disease for an average of 6 to 8 years. Usually it's more like a decade in what we've seen. So I want to show you this, and I want you guys to digest this. So thermography. When we're talking about cancer cells replicate really quickly. So in 90 days, you have 2 cells. In 1 year, you have 16. In 2 years, you have 256. 3 years, 4,896. And you can see by 8 years, it's already doubled 32 times. And that's when, after 8 years, that's normally detectable on a mammogram. But if you see where it's written in purple there, thermography can detect it when it's just 256 cells, which is amazing, right? That's amazing. And you can see in that picture there that it measures heat. And when you see those concentrated, really concentrated, dark red spots, that could be an indication that something is going on. So like when you have your first thermography exam, you will get your baseline. And then just like we do the scans in the office, we're looking at changes over time. And so you're looking for changes. So you have that baseline, and every year I'm looking for changes. So there was 1 year that I had my scan, and it showed some pretty questionable stuff. And I was like, all right, I really need to get refocused on all my 5 essentials. So I did that. I changed a little bit, and I upped my exercise, and I changed what I was eating a little bit. I was really a lot more strict on the advanced plan. I took out all the grains, even like quinoa and things like that. And then by my next scan, it was completely back to normal. But had I not made those changes, I don't know, maybe it would have continued to look worse. So I just cannot say enough about thermography and what a great tool it is in terms of measuring things. Now, you can do whole body scans where you're able to detect changes in things in your whole body. I typically do the breast scan, but definitely look into it. I can give you the info for the people that come to the office. They are wonderful, and it's non-invasive. You're not getting smushed or squished, and there's no radiation, and it makes sense to me, and that's what I choose to do. So I encourage you to look into it. Oh, and like I mentioned, it's pennies on the dollar compared to mammography, so insurance companies typically don't cover it, but paying cash for it is super affordable and so worth it. I highly recommend it. Okay, so then with detoxification to help with that, our detox system is absolutely awesome, and it helps raise glutathione. So glutathione is our master antioxidant, and so you want to make sure that your glutathione levels are as high as they can be for preventing breast cancer and lots of other things. And then I think we're almost to the end here, but we have to make sure that we're keeping our nervous systems functioning at an optimal level. When you are trying to prevent cancer or fight cancer or never want cancer again, it is of utmost importance to make sure that you have your nerve supply 100% and that your spine and nervous system are functioning at their highest level. It helps with your immune system. helps you fight off whatever. Remember, we talked about those 2,000 to 10,000 cancer cells every single day. You need your nervous system and your immune system to be fighting those things off. They need to be like an army fighting those things off every single day. So, so important. And just a couple of things that I wanted to draw your attention to. There's a couple of websites, Think Before You Pink, Breast Cancer Action, not Breast Cancer Awareness, Breast Cancer Action. They do some great things. And then Tenpenny, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, like I mentioned, she has the Mama Care, and then she also is big in the vaccine world. So I highly recommend those things. And just really, if you have friends and family that are concerned about breast cancer, that are battling breast cancer, I can get you the link to this so that they can watch it. And, let's just really work to make a difference in preventing this thing and move the needle finally once and for all in a positive direction. And listen, even people, and I should mention this too, and I said this at the workshop, we're not telling you what to do in terms of your treatment plan. If people decide to do chemo and radiation, at a bare minimum, they still need to be doing these things with the 5 essentials because there are side effects from those things. Right? So especially if you choose to do those things, you have to be supporting your body through it. We have people that have gone all alternative. We've had people that have done a hybrid. Those are the people that do the best. The people that just strictly go the conventional route and don't do any of these other supportive things are the ones that don't fare as well. And so you have to get your friends and family to watch this, to pick up on some of these 5 essentials tips, especially if they're going through things like chemo and radiation, because it is tough on a body and those side effects are real. And so we can help people through that as well. So I hope this was informative. I know it was a lot, which is why we couldn't go through it at the MasterClass because it was just so much. But if you have any questions, please ask and look for links with some of the products that I talked about and some other things. So have a great night, everyone.